many of you as possible. And I see investors that are interested in this, that are looking to put funds. I want to encourage you. This is where to sink your next, $1 million. Just think about it. This is the space. So today, let's track and connect. And I see people that are creating spaces. I see people that are providing solar power. I see people that are providing, different people that are connecting with these different platforms are here. And I'm excited about all the different platforms that are emerging. Between then and now, you know some of the names, and they're doing an amazing stuff. And so, ladies and gentlemen, today is to hear more of all of these different things. And of course, we then feature a story that I'm particularly excited about because this story has many legs to it. When a company moved into Vinea in 2015 as Pay with Capture, they moved in on the platform of Access Bank, who, by the way, now is the sponsor, and it's quite interesting, now the official sponsor of Coworking 2018. Access Bank at that time had nothing to do with Coworking. They just had a platform, they just had an interesting idea in Pay with Capture, and I'm sure many of you heard about Pay with Capture, that they were funding, or that was using their platform to run. And then Pay with Capture then became Access Bank's sort of like fintech company, as it were. And Pay with Capture then came to Vinea and grew at Vinea almost sporadically. And before you knew it, another company started that then eventually merged, or let me say the story, with Pay with Capture and formed a new platform called Flutterwave. Now, Flutterwave started from inside Vinea Business School with 4 people, with the founder, Inya Boyeji, 4 people. And in the space of 2 years, in the space of 12 months, inside a one-room, co-working space, and of course, with all the different things that are around lounge areas, created and processed over $1 billion worth of payments in Nigeria. And think about that story. And before you knew it, then out and grew out of our space into their own space in the space of 18 months. And 24 months later, hear this story. Quite interesting. And he is here later, and they don't go anywhere. Because you'll be amazed to hear his story. Because he is actually a lawyer by training. He's not a tech guy. He's not a, So how does a lawyer transition from there to now owning a payment platform, a fintech platform? And then you then get into a place where they then outgrew the space they had that they moved into. And then they grew back into a larger space in Vinea, which is a massive 500 square meters with over 120 people back in our space again. But now not just a co-working space, but an entire floor of one of our buildings in Lekki. What an amazing story, an amazing journey. And I'm so excited to see Access Bank, who was part of the initial story of Pay with Capture before Pay with Capture became Flutterwave, and then to see now becoming a partner and a sponsor again. So we appreciate you, Access Bank, under the leadership of Dr. Herbert Wigwe for partnering with us this year. And what you're doing at African FinTech Foundry is also an exciting idea for the future of entrepreneurship in Nigeria. I'm done here, and I'm going to get out of the way so that big trains can begin to pass through this road. Thank you very much. Have an amazing time. Enjoy the day. Share on Instagram and Facebook on Twitter with hashtag #CoWorkAndPay. Thank you very much.
That's a beautiful speech from Mr. Kola Oyeyeleni. And I would love us to give him one more time round of applause, please. I would like to welcome our next distinguished speaker, Dr. Omobola Johnson. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Up next is Dr. Omobola Johnson. Dr. Omobola Johnson is a partner of TLCom Capital in Lagos, Nigeria, a venture capital firm focused on investments in technology-enabled companies in sub-Saharan Africa. Before joining TLCom, Dr. Johnson was Minister of Communication Technology in Nigeria from 2011 to 2015. Focusing on the launch and execution of the National Broadband Plan, and the supporter of the Nigerian technology industry, including the pioneering involvement of the government in a local VC fund and a network of startup incubators. Before serving in the Nigerian government, she was in the center for over 25 years, including 5 years as country managing director, working with companies in a variety of industries, transforming them into more competitive and dynamic organizations. Dr. Johnson serves on the board of a number of not-for-profit and for-profit organizations, including Women in Management and Business, WIMBIZ, where she was the founding chairperson. She has a bachelor's degree in electrical and electronic engineering from the University of Manchester, a master's in digital electronics from King's College London, and a doctorate in business administration from the School of Management of Cranfield.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You will see, as you see me in person, I don't look like that anymore.
After 4 years in government, my grey hair.
And you're very proudly now, all my grey hair. But it really is a pleasure to be here. And I should first of all apologize. When I speak at conferences like this, I appreciate the role of the organizers of the event. And so I do exactly what I'm told. And I was told to be here for 9:40. Not realizing that the Vice President was actually going to be here in person. And so I missed his speech. And I vented at Kola, and we're now friends. We're friends again. But I felt very sad that I missed his speech, but I caught the questions at the end, and also what Kola says. I had the sense of what he was saying. Because I always like to connect what I'm saying with what other people have said or will potentially say. And I think we're very lucky in Nigeria. We've been very lucky over the last, I would say, eight years or so when it comes to the technology industry and the tech startup space. And that's because we've had two successful, and I say this myself, we've had two successful administrations that are very interested in the development and the growth of this particular sector. I remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago when when His Excellency the Vice President went to Silicon Valley. There was a Twitter storm about, why is he going to Silicon Valley, what's his business and whatever. And I had to intervene. I said it's important that he goes to these kind of places because we need to learn how, Silicon Valley was built, not so much to copy it, but to bring some of those learnings back to this country and begin to develop the tech space that will actually work for Nigeria. I went to Silicon Valley when I was minister. Many of the things that we did were as a result of that learning, that opportunity to learn and engage with people who've done the same thing before. So I think having the Vice President here, well done to Kola for orchestrating that. Very, very important, and to hear what he thinks and how they're going to support this industry going forward. But let me go to my own speech now. So being a partner in a venture capital firm, my speaker's brief for this keynote was of course centered around how co-working spaces could position themselves or make themselves more attractive for investments, and what could be the investment drivers for a co-working space. I was also asked to speak about how investors and co-working space operators could collaborate and why they should. It was really when I saw that last point about collaboration that I breathed a sigh of relief and not regret for having accepted Kola's request for me to give one of the keynotes at this conference. And I'll tell you why. That's because co-working spaces are not really in the investment thesis. Neither are they an investment priority for the TLCom type fund that I represent in Nigeria. And so it really was not an industry or a space that I knew much about and I paid much attention to, particularly from an investment perspective. So like other events where I speak, I know that having said that, when I leave this place, I will be inundated with requests for investment and pitch decks kind of thrown at me and my email address of, we don't invest in co-working spaces. But, however, and this is a big however, co-working spaces are a very important part of the tech ecosystem to which VCs like ours belong, especially in this country. And they're a critical source of deal flow and opportunity assessment. But having accepted to speak at this conference, despite the fact that we don't invest in co-working spaces, two things happened, whether they were by coincidence or providence or design, it doesn't really matter, but two important things happened. First of all, somebody called me to ask for an opinion on a request for her to invest in a co-working space. And upon further investigation, and after reviewing the investment proposal, I discovered that over 1 million people actually work in co-working spaces across the world. And in Africa, the growth of co-working spaces has actually accelerated. And Kola has already talked about Nigeria. There are 24 co-working spaces across the world in 2013 in Africa, and over 250 in 2016. And in Nigeria, from just 2 to 70, probably more as we speak. A lot of them concentrated in Lagos, and that itself is good, but it's also a problem. As Kola said, we need to have this spread across the country. This was indeed, and according to a Forbes article in March 2016, one of the largest startup segments, hiding in plain sight. And then on a plane back from Europe in early July, I was reading the Financial Times, and lo and behold, I opened it up, and there was a full-page article on WeWork. And for those of you that know the co-working space industry, WeWork is actually the largest co-working space in the world. It's valued at about $20 billion. It's grown to 250,000 members in 8 years of its existence. It has offices in 73 cities, and a very aggressive expansion plan for the Middle East and Asia. Well, luckily not Africa, so we can still continue to do our own thing in Africa and in Nigeria. But while this article acknowledged this phenomenal growth of this very innovative startup, WeWork is, by the way, one of the top 10 most valuable companies in the world with a $20 billion valuation. It very strongly questioned the high valuation. For instance, the more traditional office co-working spaces like IWG, which was formerly Regus, are valued at a fraction of this number, and in some instances they generate more revenue and are actually more profitable. Every instance is actually more profitable. Today, WeWork's costs are higher than revenues. Some of the reasons for this speak to the co-working space business model. It is, inherent in this business model is this a risky mismatch between long-term assets, the multi-year leases that you need for the space itself, and short-term liabilities. These are the monthly rentals that you charge the members of the co-working space. And if a co-working space doesn't attract a minimum number of members, or there's a softening of the rental markets, the ability to unravel these very long-term leases is a challenge, and in many instances, it's rather constraining for the owners of these spaces. In addition to this, there's quite a low barrier to entry. Maybe that's why there's so many. When you think about it, how hard can it be to lease an office space, spruce it up, and then rent it out at a higher price to whoever's asking? But yet, astute investors like SoftBank is probably the investor we work today. They're throwing money at what my partner likes to call this bonfire of cash. WeWork is blowing through $1.3, $1.4 billion every year. That's a lot of money for a company that's not making any profit. So we probably need to investigate why, beyond the numbers of the growth that we see, why are co-working spaces growing at such a phenomenal rate across the globe and of course Nigeria, and why do they appear to be an attractive investment opportunity? I know that we talked about whether there's a debate as to what the difference is between a co-working space, an incubator, an accelerator, and the truth is, beyond the entrepreneurs that are going to be in these spaces themselves, because they go to whichever space depending on where they are in the stage of their business, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters to us as VCs is that these spaces, they actually facilitate, support, and strengthen the ideation and commercialization process, and the creation of an enabling environment for tech companies to thrive and to grow. And as you know, they do this primarily through two things. First of all, there's flexibility and variability. They give flexibility and variability to what is a very heavy fixed cost for most companies, and that is, especially startups, office space, office rental, and in Nigeria we can add constant electricity and of course fast, reliable Wi-Fi. And the second thing they do is that they offer communities of people, and this is really obviously the crux of the advantage, of benefits. They offer communities of people working in close proximity to each other, fostering interaction, networking, collaboration, idea exchange, and which should lead to innovation and disruption that we all need to see in this environment, using innovation and disruption to solve some of the grand challenges that we have in the country and in the continent. So my 2 pence on how co-working spaces could make themselves an attractive investment, a proposition to any investor. Just 2 or 3 points here. As real estate pundits say, location, location, location. where you situate the co-working space is very, very important, especially in a country like ours, where there are challenges with infrastructure, whether it's broadband or transportation or whatever it is as a challenge. So that location is key. You know, they must be in places that are easy to access by private or public transportation, or on foot if need be, and it should be in close proximity to amenities or be able to provide those amenities themselves. Secondly, there must be demonstrable evidence of a sustainable model that mitigates the lease and rental mismatch that I spoke about earlier, innovative and flexible lease options, revenue models that are not wholly dependent on monthly rentals, which brings me on to the next thing, which is the services that these co-working spaces provide. You know, the relevance, the range and quality of these services provided are key to attracting paying members and those like us looking for opportunities to partner and to collaborate. Now, if these things are not in place, there's no demonstrable evidence that they will, and there's no demonstrable evidence that they will be in place, no investor will take a second look at a co-working space. But beyond the physical that I've talked about, location and what you provide and all of that, there are a number of what I call non-tangible things that are actually quite important. And these are the things that really contribute to the development of the real tech ecosystem that includes all the stakeholders and is important to VCs like TLCom. If I can just explain the VC model a little bit to then talk about the other things that are important in co-working spaces. The VC model is one that is a very high-risk model, high risk and high return. Many of the companies that we invest in will either fail spectacularly, some of them will be moderately successful, and one or two of them will be spectacularly successful, and those are the ones that you bank on. But at the point of the investment, you have to convince yourself that this investment that I'm making is the one that's going to generate that 100 times return. Every investment that we make, this is the one that's going to generate the 100 times return. But we know that it may not be. But the outcome of that is that you've got to look at many companies to be able to find that one that you think is going to deliver that return. And so as VCs, we need a very robust pipeline, deal flow pipeline, that is just churning out companies that we can look at literally every day. A new company should be coming out every day. Because the ratio is about, you look at 100 companies and you invest in only one. So clearly we need thousands of companies to be able to deploy, you know, the $100 million that we want to deploy over the next 5 to 7 years. So our tech ecosystem is fledgling, and while there are hundreds of tech entrepreneurs out there, and I'm sure there's some of you in this audience today, only a few get the media attention, whether it's the traditional media or the social media, whatever media it is, only a few get the media attention to give them the visibility that they need. And so, while my visits or invitations to co-working spaces, and I have been to a few, is really to share my ideas and my experiences and all of that. For me, when I go to those spaces, I have unfettered and unparalleled access to some of the companies that are coming out of those co-working spaces. Nicole has just given, you know, one of the best examples of a co-working space. I remember a few years after I left government, I called Shola Akinade, the co-founder of Paystack, and said, "Oh, Shola, I'd like to meet with you." And when he came to my office then in Yaba, I'm located in Yaba, yes, the future Silicon Valley of Nigeria. He came to my office and he said, "Excuse me, I actually know you already." I said, "Oh, you know me?" He said, "Actually, I was in the idea incubator in Yaba." That was where he first started. So for us, it's a very important connection, engagement, means of connection and engagement with the ecosystem when we go to these co-working spaces. The majority of tech entrepreneurs that we see today are first-time business managers, and through no fault of their own, they really are lacking in some of the business building and knowledge capabilities required to establish a scalable, sustainable, and profitable business. Being part of a community in a co-working space provides the opportunity for entrepreneurs to interact with and learn from other entrepreneurs in different stages of the business building. So as I said, my visits to co-working spaces have been to share experiences, and I use every opportunity that I have to share what it is that VCs are looking for as they make investments. It really is much more than a good idea. Everybody thinks they have a good idea, the best idea that's going to solve this particular problem or challenge that is being faced by consumers. But beyond the business concept and the idea, you know, we look at the size of the addressable market that this product is trying to offer, the relevance of the product or the service that is being offered to the addressable market, and what percentage of the addressable market can actually be captured by this company. The number of competitors in the market, which is good and bad. Competitors actually validate your space. So when you come to a VC and say, "I'm the only one doing this," the question is Is it because you're stupid or because you're smart? So you have to figure out which one it is. So in a sense, competitors actually validate your space. And we also look at the vision nature of the entrepreneur, the character of the entrepreneur or the founder, and his or her ability to build a strong team and the quality of that team, and of course the opportunity for exit. So I use that opportunity to speak to tech entrepreneurs about these are the things that VCs look for. And so prepare yourself when you're going to make your pitch to address all these things so that you're then more likely to be able to get funding. So being able to share these numbers actually make my work easier. To be able to share it in these co-working spaces make my work easier when I talk to companies that actually finally come to me for or come to us for investments. But this is not to say, when you give examples of Flutterwave and Paystack, it's not to say that every successful tech company must emanate from a for the number of co-working spaces and innovation labs that we're creating. The broadband infrastructure is not good enough. So when we're in this fairly young environment, these co-working spaces are very, very important to the development of the ecosystem, and they really improve the probability of success of many of our entrepreneurs. So it's not a coincidence that we see some of the tech giants investing in co-working spaces. Facebook, Google, First Bank, Access Bank, they're all setting up these digital innovation labs. Some of them in Yaba, they've done the right thing, some of them not. But we'll see. I'm still trying to convince Kola to bring one of his veneer hubs to Yaba. It's still a conversation. So it's in the interest of these big tech companies that this ecosystem grows. And of course, it is also in our interest that they come in and help us and work with us to make the ecosystem grow. So while there's an important element of real estate management and expertise inherent in the co-working space, and as Kola said earlier, I want to emphasize this is not a real estate place. So for those people that are investing in co-working spaces because there's a real estate return, that's not the point of co-working spaces. And that brings me to the point around the leadership of a co-working space. It cannot or should not be a facilities manager or real estate person, because the founders or the manager of the operators of co-working space are a critical success factor to that particular venture. They need to be people that are well connected or embedded in the technology ecosystem itself. They need to know where, or they typically would know where and how to seek out partnership opportunities, how to seek out funding opportunities for the members of the community. They understand the skills and the competence requirements or the gaps of the tech entrepreneurs, and they can offer the right kind of learning and experience sharing and training and capacity building to bridge those gaps. It's by doing all of these things that they can attract sufficient numbers of members to the space and make the co-working space not only a viable investment, but also contribute to the development of a tech ecosystem. So it's not a case of build it and they will come. You can have a very nice co-working space, looks really lovely and everything, but if you don't have all those ingredients of a co-working space manager that is embedded in the tech system, understands technology, understands entrepreneurship, can bring together partnerships and funding and everything to really support the members of the community, it really is going to be dead in the water even before it starts. So just as it is when we assess a tech company for investment, the quality, the character, and the visionary nature of the founder, manager, or the operator of the co-working space is a critical success factor. So to conclude, there are some tangible physical and real estate related criteria that co-working spaces need to fulfill to be attractive investment opportunities. And there are also some soft criteria that they must fulfill to be not only attractive investments, but also to be important contributors to the tech ecosystem that we're trying to build in Nigeria. My interest, or TLCom Capital's interest in co-working spaces has really been heightened now that I'm more aware of what is going on in this space. And you are more aware of what we're looking for as we invest one day in a co-working space. And maybe a co-working space operator in this room will tick all the boxes that I've talked about and will provide a viable investment opportunity for TLCom to consider. Who knows? And with that, I conclude. Thank you for listening.
Location. If you are as a business or as a co-working space collaborator, you are in the wrong location, you definitely lose businesses, investors, and the right people. Also, having the right co-working space depends, largely on the state in Nigeria, but in Africa. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for your wonderful speech, Dr. Omobola Johnson. Thank you. Can we give her a round of applause? Our next speaker is a very interesting successful woman, and she's going to speak for a few minutes, 10 minutes, and she would shed more light on, LSTEF and how Lagos State has partnered with the co-working space and also funded it. So I would love you to put your attention on the screen. Thank you.
To get the perspective of government and policymakers on this industry and entrepreneurship in Nigeria in general, we are joined by Tosin Ifaniro Dada, Head Lagos Innovates. She will be discussing facilitating innovation through co-working. Please, a round of applause for Tosin Ifaniro Dada.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tosin Ifaniro Dada, and I head Lagos Innovates at the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. How many people have heard of the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund? Good, so my work is done. Anyway, the at LSETF, our mandate is very simple, is to create jobs. And how are we doing this? We're doing this by supporting MSMEs. We're doing this by training people and placing them in jobs. One of our new programs that we recently launched is called Lagos Innovates, which I manage. And the reason why LSETF launched Lagos Innovates is because we realized the unique needs of tech startups and innovation-driven enterprises. So what will Lagos Innovates do? Lagos Innovates is simply a set of programs that are designed to make it easier to have successful tech startup businesses in Lagos State. We have 6 programs. 3 programs have launched, and I'll quickly go over them. Apparently I have 2 minutes, okay. The first program is a workspace voucher program. And in the workspace voucher program, what we're doing is providing vouchers to founders so that they can go to any of our partner hubs and use their spaces at a discount. We have 3 workspace vouchers. We have a 12,000 Naira voucher, and that's for people that are at ideation stage. You get 12,000 Naira for 3 months. We have a 20,000 Naira voucher, and that's for founders that are at proof of concept stage, and you get that for 6 months. And then we have our most expensive voucher, which is a 150,000 Naira voucher for 12 months, and that's the one everybody wants. But unfortunately, I have limited resources. I can't give all of you 150,000 Naira vouchers. With the 150,000 Naira voucher, it enables you to get an office. And if you're in Yaba, 150,000 Naira would comfortably get you an office. If you're in BI, it's Fairly Care, workstation. If you're in BI, 150,000 Naira will not get you an office, but it would at least get your team members hot desk at the co-working space. Now, the 150,000 Naira voucher is for people that have achieved proof of concept. It's for people that have market validation. It's for people that have even started making some money, and it's for people that have teams. So you have a team of 4 or 5, you then can get an office. So with our workspace voucher program focuses on the demand side. So we're trying to get you access to co-working spaces at a discount. But then we also think about the supply side. What do we do for the co-working spaces? How do we help them? And it's also very important that you realize that we're here to support. We're not here to take all the credit. We're not going to build our own hub and say the vouchers can only be used at our hubs. That's not what we're trying to do. So on the supply side, we give loans to hubs, co-working spaces, and incubators. You can access up to 50 million naira at 5% per annum, which I think is the cheapest right now, 5% per annum for 4 years. And what you can use that funding to do is to expand or open a new location. So say, for example, Vinia wants to open a hub in Yaba, they can then apply to the loan, get the funds, and expand. We also sponsor events as well, events that support networking, events that support collaboration. In the ecosystem, we will support your event, we will sponsor it. We wouldn't take over your event, we wouldn't ask for too much, just a few minutes so we can create some awareness on Lagos Innovates and what we're doing. Towards the end of the year, we would launch a capacity building program. And with the capacity building program, we're going to be training people in tech skills. Now with this program, it would work like a student loan program. And the reason why we've designed it this way is because we have to think about other people coming up as well. It has to be a sustainable fund so we can train as much people as we can. What would happen is you would get, we would pay for 80% of your cost to attend any of the trainings at any of our selected partners. And then you would have a moratorium period where you then have to look for a job and then you repay back the loan. We would also have our own accelerator program that would probably launch early next year, and that is where we would take 2 cohorts of 5 businesses through an intense mentoring, provide co-working spaces for them. If we really like your business, we might invest, but it's not guaranteed. But you will be trained, you will have access to mentors, you will have access to other entrepreneurs that are successful in your particular field. So in a nutshell, that's what LSETF and Lagos Innovates is doing. I can take a few questions.
Before that, I would love you to write down your questions. We're going to have a Q&A section. It's going to be very interactive. So write it down while we have Miss Tosin sit down. Thank you. Thank you, thank you so much for the speech. In the meantime, there's a car sort of blocking the entrance. Car plate number EPE 868Y. Please, 8X. Can you please repark your car? Thank you. Thank you. EPE 6AX. Please repark your car. Thank you so much. Hi, it's a pleasure once again. Welcome to the Coworking Conference 2018. Okay, so this is going to be a very interactive Q&A section. So if you have questions, write down a piece of paper, pass it to one of the ushers, and they would get it down to Tosin, and then you will get to answer your questions. But before we proceed to that, give us a brief highlight on your career path, and what inspired you on this journey.
So I studied accounting. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in accounting. I worked at PwC for 3 years, auditing mutual funds and private equity funds. I moved back to Nigeria in 2010. Started working at ARM, fantastic soft landing, very good company.
Oh yes.
I was a financial analyst at ARM. I did that for 3 years, and then I got bored.
Wow.
Yeah. I got bored and decided to try Nigerian banks. So,
how did that work out for you?
God, probably the most challenging industry I've ever worked in my life. So I worked at Skybank for 3 years. I was in corporate banking. looking after upstream accounts. I did that for 3 years, and then I moved to the Lagos Employment Trust Fund. I started there as the head of strategy and partnerships. And while I was doing that, we were designing Lagos Innovates with the consultant at the time. And when we finished that, it made sense to push the programs.
Okay, what inspired Lagos Innovate? What got you to that state where you were like, okay, we have to build this, we have to do this? What was that?
So I think it's us realizing that innovation-driven enterprises and tech startups are completely different from SMEs. But a lot of people don't understand that, And also, with traditional SMEs, people just, they lend them money, which is one of the things that LSETF does. We provide access to finance to MSMEs. You lend them money, and then you then just start waiting, so they need to start paying after 3 months, moratorium is over. But then with IDEs and tech startups, they're unique. They're high risk. However, there's high growth and high job potentials. So it's us realizing that and us then saying, how do we support them? And one of the things we did was to do a survey. So we went to all the co-working spaces. We went to all the co-working spaces. We interacted with a lot of founders, and we basically just asked them what their pain points were. And most people kept saying access to infrastructure, access to funding, access to mentors. And we've also realized at LSETF that a lot of people, their problem is not just access to finance. Everybody thinks it's funding, But for some people, it's infrastructure, it's mentoring. Some people, it's just the ease of doing business. Just doing business in Lagos is just difficult, in terms of knowing the ministries to go, the agencies to go. So we collated all these different responses and then designed the 6 programs that we came up with.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's very inspiring. One of the major things, when it comes to this sort of platform, I think one of the most key questions amongst every other is how do you get these funds to the right people? And also, you mentioned high risk. How do you mitigate this? How do you get to the point where this is monitored and then the value? Or how do you get the funds to the right people?